The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
And welcome to Chasing Purpose. I'm your host, Kathleen Connor, and if this is your first time here, I'm really glad you found your way in, and I hope you stay a while. If you've been here before, well, welcome back. You know the routine. Today is powerful, powerful, powerful. Get a pen and paper. You're going to write it down, and I'm super passionate about the topic today. It's from a time before I was born, but a time that's coming around again, 1964. Bob Dylan wrote a song about change in society and change in our world. And right now, I think it's appropriate about the change in relationships and what's happening right now. And I hope that it's the tipping point around the change from traditional relationships and to relational relationships. And I'm going to explain that. So I want you to listen closely because we have a lot to unpack. So what's going on today is that people are leaning into their feelings more so now than they ever have. We have so much going on in our society and our world right now. It's so hard to comprehend how fast things are changing, connections. The ability, AI is bringing things to surface and changing the way that we work. Our medicine is treating conditions and diseases that were never treatable or never curable in the past. And that's powerful. There's so many things changing and so many things happening at lightning speed. The world seems at our fingers, and so does communication, instantaneous. And also, it also brings to a point that everything we've changed around us, as far as our systems, our environment, our technology, and everything has changed. All of the operating systems around that have changed except for one, and that's the love system. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is that I think it's the tipping point, and I feel that it is. I hear it so often when I talk to people about what they're lacking or experiencing in their relationship, their love relationships. Today, women are running companies. There's wealth being made all over the place, institutions. We're occupying rooms that our mothers and grandmothers never were invited, not even into the room, but not even into the building. So communication, as we know, is instantaneous. Information is everywhere, and we have evolved, adapted, expanded, and learned and become more capable at everything. Yet love is still running on that old script. And we've updated our own operating system, except for the love one, in my opinion. Too many of us are following the love script that we inherited from generations, from our parents and generations before them. The same ceremony, the same rings, the same government license, and the same gates that seem to happen in order in the timeline. We graduate, we work, we meet somebody, we engage, we marry, the house, the children. Same assumed roles, same obligations, same duties, same expectations about who carries the emotional weight and who manages the house, who absorbs the silence, and who gets praised for simply showing up. Same model, different decade. But these times, they are changing, and I hear it so often that we're now leaning into our feelings, and I love it. I'm a relational person, and I dive deep into my relationships. And let me start by saying I'm a traditional person. I love the roles. I love being a mom, a wife. I was great at it. I'm always contributing to any relationship that I have. It's important for me to contribute and show up every day within them and do my part to make them healthy and productive as much as I can. And so let me also say that I grew up in a very traditional family as well. And we were taught values around traditions: respect your elders, give up your seat for the old and for the feeble, even for the mothers and wives and kids we gave up our seats for. That's what we were told. We were taught to go to church. We were told to clean our rooms and all of the things, and to respect our parents and our elders and everybody around us. And those were traditional models that I grew up in, and the structure that I was brought up into, and the responsibilities and the image that I grew up in. Husband and wife, my parents were, they were taught, and we were taught as husbands and wives, to stand up, sit down, smile, endure, and know our roles, and to keep the picture clean, to show up every day and playing that role. And I often have to think back of the times that I played that role, that it was about someone else's expectation of a role that I needed to play. When I was in my early 20s, I was in a committed relationship right out of college, and living 3,000 miles away from my hometown and away from my family. It was an opportunity that I embraced fully. I loved it. I loved being that distance. I missed my family, don't get me wrong, but I loved being that distance and absorbing everything I could from the other side of the country. The sounds, the spices, the people, the atmosphere, the weather, all of those types of things, but brought so much experience to me every single day. And my eyes were open wide to it. I was living in California during a time when there were wildfires and earthquakes and Rodney King, so riots and all types of things going on around me that I was just absorbed in. I couldn't believe, and O.J. Simpson was going on in that time as well. So I couldn't believe everything that I had the opportunity to really see and experience, not only by reading it in the paper or experiencing it on the news, but seeing it, seeing it on my local news, the white car that OJ drove down the highway and all of those types of things. It was amazing. But also in that relationship that I had with the gentleman, or the boy at the time, it was felt from me, and I'm sure from him as well, that we were ready and pressured to move through the gates of our relationship. We started dating. He was my best friend's boyfriend's friend, so it was inevitable that we would end up together. And I loved him for what I thought love was in my early 20s. It was different than what I believe love is now, and I don't want to take away from that relationship or from that situation, because I learned a lot from it, and I learned a lot from myself. But in my early 20s, and I believe in our 20s, is one of the most formidable times in our lives, that we change so much from 20 to 30. We change our views around what we see outside in the world, our cultural views, our maybe our religious views, our political views. All of those things just get broadened, I think, in our 20s. I think we go into our 20s and we come out of our 20s as a totally different person if we take the opportunity to do so. And I did, believe me. And so I felt as though when I met the person, I actually grew up in the same hometown with him. So it's not like I'd met him. I already had known him growing up as well. But when I met him in a relationship, put it that way, it was felt, after we were there together for a year, and then the Christmas came, I think that there were, noises or kind of expectations that he would give me a diamond and that we would get married. And that didn't happen Christmas. It happened the following year in the summer that he proposed and we were engaged. But it felt like the family, that's what they expected of us. It felt like our friends, that's what they expected of us. It felt like everything was already planned for us. And in his mind, he was a very traditional person and grew up with traditional values as well. I think in his mind and in his image of our relationship, it was married by 25, house by 28, kids by 30. That was kind of his pattern. And I felt a lot of pressure, not only from him, but also from my parents and his parents about our gates that we needed to go through. And we did go through them, but I felt as though, and I'm looking back on it now, 30 plus years later, I felt as though those were things that maybe I did for other people, for situations and for pressures by others. My mother and father get married when they were 19 and 20. They were childhood sweethearts, grew up on the same street, had known each other their whole lives, and they lived on the same street that they were raised on. Both died on the street. Years later, decades later, thank goodness. 75 years in the same house as my mother and 55 years married. They would have been married longer, but my father had an illness and passed. So that's just a little bit of glimpse. So their world was about my street. Their peripheral vision was about that distance from the first part of the street to the second. They did travel because I traveled because I lived other locations, and they took advantage of coming to see me and doing road trips and seeing other parts of the country. And I was happy to have them do that, and blessed that they took the opportunity to do so. But they didn't have a big wedding in those days in the early 1950s. That wasn't what was happening. They got married in the church, had the reception at my grandparents' house, and that was it. So my wedding was the first wedding of a daughter in my parents' house and family. So I felt pressure that my wedding and my decisions were made for my mother. I think it was her wedding, and it was a beautiful day and exactly what she wanted. But I'm just giving you an instance of that. And again, I want to talk about traditional things that I enjoy. I love a traditional meal. I love a holiday table. I love a parade, the pomp and circumstance around everything. I cry at weddings. I have cried at funerals, certainly. I love rituals and I love traditional things. But the main thing that I think that we find ourselves into in society is that traditional relationships and long-term relationships tend to fade away with the connection and we look like we're connected, but we don't feel connected. And that's what I want to say. I want to say I'm not dissing on traditions. I love them. I think they're great. I love the tradition of a marriage. I love the tradition of a family. I love the rituals and the traditions of the holidays around that. But we have to feel through traditions. We have to feel while we're in relationships and at the dinner table. When we say the oohs and ahs of fireworks, it's because we feel the power and the patriotism that comes from them, or whatever they're celebrating. It's not just the oohs and ah because everybody else is doing it. So I want to just go back that it's about the feelings and not the role. I want to clarify and not have anybody send me nasty things. I love the role in the traditional roles. It's about the feelings. And I think that in our society right now, that's what we're getting to, is that people want to feel in relationships. They want to feel their feelings. And then not only that, they want to feel their partner's feelings. They want to have conversations that are deep, not every day in every conversations, but they want to be vulnerable enough and safe enough to have conversations about their fears, their wants, their desires, their needs, and their dreams, and what's working and what's not working. I think it's important for us during any type of relationship and any type of situation that not only do we talk about our feelings, we ask about the other person's feelings and how we can do better for them and with ourselves, right? As I said, I'm a contributing member to society. I'm a contributing member to my relationships, and that's important. And we all should do those things. We should all do what we need to do in order to feel our feelings. And I think it starts with communication. I think it starts with the check-ins. I think it starts with evolving through everything that we have. We have so many things at the palm of our hands and our phones that we can certainly look to and be with, so that we can understand our feelings and understand our partner's feelings and our kids' feelings. And it's our responsibility, I believe, again, my feelings, I believe it's our responsibility as parents to pick our children up and raise them up onto our shoulders so that they have the opportunities from here, our shoulders, to step off our shoulders, to not start where we started from the ground up, but they lead from our shoulders. And we give them all the opportunities in life to try new sports, new things, new musical instruments, new foods, new experiences, new friends, new schools, all of those things. They have I know my son has a better opportunity for different things and diverse things than I did because of our environment and because of the financial means. I was one of 7, and we certainly had our needs and wants met as a kid, but we didn't have the things that I made to give to my son today as an only child, that's for sure. So it's my role as a parent, I believe, to give him the opportunity to step off my shoulders in relationships so that he knows that he doesn't have to do things and learn every experience that I did the hard way, that he can learn from my experiences. Now, again, I know that he's a teenager and he doesn't need to know my history, but he needs to know some of it and why I am the person that I am. And so I keep asking people throughout my sessions in my life is that it's important to know that traditional roles are important and they have a place and I love them. But you have to choose them, right? You have to choose to be into those traditional roles. And it's choose when you're in a traditional role or a relational role that you choose your feelings, that's important too. And I'm passionate about that. I'm passionate about feeling my feelings. I used to, when I cried and I was in relationships or around friends or my son or anything, and I would cry or tear up, they would always tell me, and especially my parents would always tell me, and I would stop crying, there's no need, those types of things. And I always felt, especially on the other side of therapy, not that I'm past it or won't need it anymore, that I always feel like I've worked so hard to feel my feelings that I need to. If I tear up for a reason at the moment that something happens, that's important and that's imperative for me to do. That if I'm hurt, I want to feel it instantaneous and move past it so that I understand it. And so does the person that I'm feeling that either pain or happiness or joy with, so that we can express it and talk about it at the same time instead of just being quiet and burying it and suffer in silence. That's not important. That's not what we need to do. So as I said, the gates that I feel we go through, traditional gates around dating and around marriage and around roles and around children and houses and whatever path we take that we seem to go through. And again, traditionally, it is the work, the relationship, the engagement, the marriage, the house, the kids. It seems like that's what it is. And we often, look to people to move through those gates. I remember when my parents were still alive and I was dating, again, in my early 20s, it was from everybody, my grandparents or my great aunts that were still alive. When are you getting married? Oh, when are you going to have a baby? All of those types of things. It was like external pressure into my internal being that I had to do the next thing, not only for myself and the relationship, but for them. And I think that that's what we do. And when we do go through those gates one after another in the order on a timeline that's handed to us before we're even old enough to understand it, let alone question it. We tend to just move through. And I think as parents, we have to break the cycle and break the patterns now. I don't want to put that pressure onto my son or onto the next generation, just like Bob Dylan, right, taught us in that song in 1964 about these times are changing. And these times are changing around relationships, and that we should embrace the change, that there are so many opportunities now around communication and emotions that we need to all feel those. And I want to make sure that my son has the opportunity to not only feel them, but understand them. And it's my role as a mother to teach him, right, how to process his emotions and his behaviors and know that he's responsible for them. I certainly can influence them, and so can his friends and other people in his life, but he is responsible for his actions and his behaviors. So we have to just be careful not to push our next generation through the gates that we were pushed through because everybody was doing it, right? Everybody was getting married. There were pressures to have children before a certain age. And I certainly know that I was an older mom when I had my son. And I know that your biological clock ticks, and it ticks quickly after you turn 35 or so. So there feels like there's a pressure, if we want to have kids, that we need to move through those gates faster. And I think that's changing as well. We see it in our demographics and in our studies that we're seeing people choosing to not have kids until later on in life. And now there's medical advances around that. And we talk more freely around fertility and infertility and issues and women's health. I think there's not enough talk about it. There is more today than there was, but still not enough around women's health and how we move through as women the gates of our own cycles and our own changes, and what that means for us and for our partners and our family. And I think, again, it all revolves around communication. And so that's the question. It's basically my metaphor, or my zinger for today is, when a swimmer is standing on the platform and you're looking down, or they're looking down the lanes, the length of the pool, and at one end of the pool is the traditional values, and maybe your parents or your grandparents or the church or whoever standing at the end watching you with a furrowed brow or whatever they did, maybe a skeptical eye. And the next lane over is maybe a different ending, that it goes back to that movie, The Sliding Door, like which lane, which door will she go through, and how her life changes with decision. And I think that's what it is that we're on the platform at any stage of our lives, and we have to choose. Again, it's about choice. It doesn't matter whether it's traditional or relational, and it can be the same. It's about the feeling. Again, I'm about the feeling and not the role, that it has to feel like it's our choice. We have to go back to, it's our choice to feel within whatever relationship we have. You've heard me in the past. I've written about it. I've talked about it. This woman, Betty, that I absolutely love, that came into my life when I needed her. And she was a mother figure to me. She was great. She was perfect. She came to me with open arms and open hearts and a very spiritual sense, and was very open to my observations and intrigue and curiosity around spirituality. And so she embraced that. And she said to me years ago, probably almost 30 years ago, when we were talking about relationships, and she was talking about her husband, and she was talking to me about my relationships. And I would say, oh, this person's my soulmate. And oh, this is just great. We have so much in common. And Betty would talk to me at length about that. It's not about commonalities. It's not about liking the same food or doing the same things or living in the same locations or knowing your partner's daily activities and rituals. It's about knowing them. And she said it in a way that I still remember as though it was yesterday, and I wish it was. I wish she was still here on this earth. That she said to me, it's not important that you find your soulmate. And I was taken back by that. I remember being almost wanting to argue that point with her, because again, at the time, the soulmate conversation, or the soulmate title was out there. And I thought it was so profound that I felt like I had found my soulmate. And she said, Kathleen, it's not about finding your soulmate. It's about finding your mate's soul. And I just remember, like, that is it. That's exactly it. It's being vulnerable enough and safe enough in a relationship that you can talk to your partner or anybody you have a relationship with, parents, siblings, coworkers at a certain level, about anything that comes up, that you feel safe enough, that we collectively and individually, we feel safe enough to talk about everything openly, that we can let down our guard. We can walk through our fears, knowing that the person who's listening isn't going to judge, criticize, and perhaps the most important thing that they're going to do is listen. And I think that's what we're dying for and craving as a human beings, is that we're craving someone to listen to us. We don't need validation. I mean, everybody does, but that's not why we're having conversations, is to someone say, validate either that we're wrong or right. It's someone to just listen to us, that we feel safe enough to open up and tell and share things, and that they then will feel open and vulnerable and safe enough to do the same. That's what Betty was telling me that day. And I didn't realize it. I've realized it, but I didn't realize what it felt was when she said, it's not about finding your soulmate, it's about finding your mate's soul. And I think more importantly, it's about them finding ours as well, that we make decisions, that we choose in relationships, patterns and roles, again, that we choose and that aren't inherited or aren't pressured. And we don't feel pressured by doing them, gates and certain numbness that we feel, right? Yes, we all have a role to play as a parent, as a spouse, but it's not about the role, it's about the feeling. It's about that experience of difference. And I talk about that often as well. It's not about more. It's not about wanting more for ourselves or more from our partners or more from our kids or our coworkers. It's about a difference. It's about sharing. We all share different spaces, the same space with different people. And when we're in relationships, we share spaces with our partners, and sharing the space with our partners as far as under the same roof and the same address and watching the same TV shows isn't the same as sharing our soul with them and our safety with them and our non-judgmental behavior with them, right? Everything can look the same, right? I often tell people, or I've told people, that we can know the address and our routines of our spouses or our kids, but do we really know them? Yes, we know their address, but do we know what's inside of them? Right, everything, right? There are traditional things that do enrich us. There are traditional activities and holidays and events that we do show up as a role, and that we need to and we want to and we choose them. But as we're showing up in those traditional events or situations or times, it's about the feeling. Again, one of the zingers I'll leave you with today, and not that I'm ready to go, but I'll leave you is it's not about looking connected. It's not about showing up as husband and wife or mother and son or daughter and parent. It's about feeling. It's about feeling part of that relationship, that you feel chosen, that you feel like you're choosing to be there. You don't have to just show up at your in-laws' house because it's something you need to do for Mother's Day, or take someone out to dinner because it's someone's birthday. You want to do it. It's the performative nightly or morning kiss as we leave for work or we come home in the afternoon, that we have to not only, I feel that when we're in relationships, that we do it out of patterns and out of obligation, or because we always did do it, but are we drawn to those things? Are we drawn to the person to want to do it, or do we do those things because if we don't, it may cause conflict, it may cause a fight, it may cause tension? So are we doing it for our own feelings, the pecks on the cheek, the pecks, the hugs, or whatever, or are we doing it for someone else's? And those are the choices that I think we have to stop and think about. How do we do those, and when do we do those? And are we doing those for ourselves, for our own feelings, or are we just doing things for others, for our family, for our partners, for our kids, or are we genuinely enjoying the time together, right? Those are the things that I think we have to think about. Again, I don't want to talk too much about the roles because I think they're important, and everybody views roles differently: husband, wife, child, parent, all of those things. So it's about whether you're sitting and listening to what's inside of you when you walk into a situation, into your own house. When you pull up into your driveway and you pull into the garage and you walk into your house, do you feel joy? There were years ago, probably again, late 20s now, probably mid 20s, that I remember coming back from New England to California and walking into the house that we had rented, or the townhome that we had rented, and walking in saying, this doesn't do it anymore. This isn't working for us. This doesn't feel like home, or this isn't where we want to be. And we made a decision, a conscientious decision, to leave California and to move out of that state into another. And it was basically because the feeling of going to a townhome or a condo, whatever it was at that time, an apartment, it felt differently coming back to it after that trip or after that time away. It just didn't have the feels. And I think we have to remember that. So when we walk into our own house, or we're seeing our partners or our kids or something after a day of work or after a time away, what are our feelings about that? And if we're disappointed, do we discuss it with them? Do we tell them that, after a time away, coming home from a business trip or whatever it is, or even a night out, that your expectations are that the kitchen would have probably been cleaned up, or that things would have been put away, or that the house would have been well lit, or that you just wanted things to have a different feel. And again, for me, it's about feelings. It may not be about feelings for everybody else, but that's what I'm here to do, is to help you understand that feelings, although we've tried to bury them in our society and our generations before us have tried to show us that they may not be as important as roles that we play or perform or participate in. But feelings to me are crucial. And I hear it now more than ever with people I talk to and my clients. They talk about that they don't want to have a dramatic ending or cause trauma to their family by leaving or making radical changes, but they want something that feels different, again, different and not more. And they want to make a change that they choose. So maybe they start with themselves and they change a pattern and they change it for themselves, and then it trickles. They behave differently. They don't get as triggered on something. They do something different in the house, put flowers in a different place, change the lighting, change some decor. It doesn't have to be costly. You don't have to spend any amount of money. It's just a little bit of energy change that starts with you and us and your energy and in your feeling. And I think it's important that not only we do it for ourselves and our own feelings, first of all, but also for our children to see that we can make changes, small changes, to bring changes within an environment, within an energy, within those types of things, so that they know it's safe for them to want, to feel, to be, and need something different than what they're experiencing. So I think that's important as well. So when we have to think about when you're sitting across from a person that you've built a life with, and that you're there not only on good days but bad, and not only on the anniversaries, but when everybody is just in their daily routines, what do you feel around them? What do you feel around yourself? What is the room and the air and energy between you like? Are you there and being drawn to the person for your own feelings, or are you there out of guilt and obligation? Does someone pat the couch next to them and offer it to you as that they need you to sit next to them, to show them that you're part of the relationship or part of the role that you're playing, and that it's not an area or a place that you feel that you want to be that close to someone, or you want to feel smothered or controlled or manipulated to sit in a place that you don't want to sit in anymore. It doesn't mean the relationship you don't want to sit in or be in, but maybe just that night. You've had a long day and you're tired and you've had to make a lot of decisions and you're carrying a lot of weight, not only emotionally, but also mentally. You're just drained. And I know myself, and we've had episodes about this, the last thing I want to do is have somebody in my hula hoop, right? I don't want somebody to be close to me when I'm just drained. I just need my time by myself. I'm an extrovert 100%, but sometimes I just need to be by myself. I need to go run a bath. I need to do something where I'm just in a quiet room. We've talked about this in the past as well, that I have a sacred chair that I sit in, and I used it when my son was probably 3 years old. And when I sit in the sacred chair, it's not special. There's nothing to it. When I sit in that chair, it's my time. And I used it a little bit more when he was a toddler, of course, because I needed a lot more time out. So he needed him to understand a boundary that I was setting, that he could see me, that I was still there and still available and still present in his life, that I needed to take a breath so that I wouldn't get triggered. And so when I, feel like people are demanding of me or of situations or of my energy, that I just need to take a break. My son is a very loving kid, and he often sits with me and we share a chair often. But sometimes I have to tell him, I just need a break. Just give me a minute, give me 10 minutes, come back. It's not that I don't love you, and it's not that I don't want to be around you, but right now I just need to process things from today. I need to process my own feelings and my own mental capacity. And when he's with me, sitting on the chair beside me, I want to be present with him. And if I can't do that, I ask him to pause, because it's not fair for him to sit with me and me to be uncomfortable, and not uncomfortable in a way that he's putting pressure on me or any of that, but just not ready for that. I'm not ready to give. So I don't do it often, but I do it. And he understands. And it started with the sacred chair. So maybe we all need some sacred space and a sacred place that we can go to, that we choose. Again, it's about the choosing of relationships, feelings within the relationships. When we want something quieter, something louder, something more energetic, something less energetic, that it's our choice and what we feel in those situations. And I think that that's what our society is becoming. And what I hear through people is that they want to be seen and heard, and just as importantly, felt in a relationship. And how we do that is we start with ourselves, and we stop whatever situation and whatever moment we're in, and we say, does this feel good to me? Does it feel like something I want to participate in? Is this relationship or this conversation or this moment in time something that I want to continue with, right? There's certain social circles that we all deal with. And if our kids are in sports or in academics environments or whatever it is, there's certain people that we socialize with, and some people get more energy or give more energy to us than others. And those are situations that I find myself saying, I'm not going to stay in a situation at a party or at an event where I feel it's uncomfortable, where I feel like it's just not working for me. So I leave graciously, I leave politely, and I leave engaged still. But I do leave. I make those choices for myself because I don't feel like it's a place I want to stay and be drained. It's not a relationship or a conversation that I want to participate in. Maybe that person doesn't have qualities in a person that I would spend time with or choose to spend time with. So again, I don't do it rudely. I do it with care and kindness and compassion, because that's how I am and that's how I was raised. And I will raise my son the same way, is that we walk away politely and leave a situation that isn't working for us through our feelings, right? So that's what the question today is. In the relationships that we're choosing to participate in, our roles, our contributions within a relationship, are they starting and are they about our feelings? Doesn't mean we always have to sit in those, we have to do everything based on feelings. That's not good either. It's, there's a balance between feelings and, right brain, left brain type things, but we have to do things that feel for us and make us feel, right? So we have to stop and think about, I've had, situations or family situations, not only with my own immediate family, but with external family, that I didn't really want to go there, but I did go, and I chose to watch my feelings, and I choose to watch my feelings within a situation. And I think it's important that we do that. How energy, I talk about that a lot, how frequency and energy can change, right? When misery loves company, one bad apple can spoil the whole cart. We talk about those things that if we're not feeling it, it can change, right? Feelings that being in a situation that doesn't feel right can also present in different ways physically and mentally to us. We can get headaches, we can get belly aches, our bodies can be stiff, our shoulders can be up. I remember a time when I was not having the best relationship with my mother, and I wasn't participating the best with her either. I would find my shoulders up around my ears. And then I realized that if I brought them down, I would be more relaxed with her. My breathing would change. I wouldn't be so stiff. I wouldn't be on guard with her. And so I had to make a physical change around my feelings and how I presented myself with her, that I became softer, and therefore I became softer inside. But it all is about conscious level and conscious thinking about how's my energy, how am I feeling, how am I presenting, and all these things are connected, right? My son and I just had a conversation this weekend, and he was asking, and we were asking each other questions about ourselves. And I was around shortly after Mother's Day, and so I was asking him things. He wanted me to ask him things about me to see how well he knew me, and he knows me pretty well. And he said to me that I notice everything, and I notice the little things. And he said, you comment when I see someone walking that I would say they walk with purpose, or they look, or they're walking, as though they don't know where they're going, those types of things. I never say it in a judgmental, like, oh, look at that person's gait, or those types of things. I just say it with purpose. And he made a comment about how I notice the little things. I notice the posture on people. I notice how people sit, or where they choose to sit in atmospheres and in situations. And you'll see that when you see family situations, or all of those. Just look around and see where people are choosing to sit, who they're most comfortable with, who they aren't maybe comfortable with, who they want to spend time together with, as opposed to away with, right? And so just watch those things, and watch how you feel, who you sit next to when you're sharing a couch cushion with somebody. Do your shoulders go? Does your breath change? Does your posture or your eye contact soften? Just watch those things. And I think as women, we need to do those more, and men do as well. But I'll talk specifically about women and the lanes that we stay in, and that we're trying to always make other people happy, and yet we have to stop and pause and think about our own feelings, and is the situation or the environment or the person bringing us joy. And I'll talk about, we talked about Wendy, she'll be here next week, and I hope you join me then too, that she talks about doing things with delight, and only doing things that bring her delight. And I love that word, and I'm still seeking my word, and maybe delight, I may land on it as well and borrow it from her. There's enough delight to go around, I hope, but it's not a word that I use. So I'm looking for my word. But those are the things that I want to be around, people that I have a good energy with, that I enjoy their company, that I feel engaged with, that we talk about, and I know we've talked about, and I know I've written about the stimulus within a relationship, the stimuli that we should crave, that we all crave, and that we should shoot for in relationships, right? That we should intellectually stimulating, sexually stimulating, physically stimulating, the spirituality stimulating, and then the core values stimulation that we should find within our relationship. And those are things that if we find the majority of, if we find all of them, that would be incredible. But if we find the majority of them, that's when our guard and our safety increases and our guard goes down. So we have to think about when we're, people have come to me and talked to me about their new dating situations, or they're back in the dating world. And I often say, how did it feel? How did that night feel? How did that dinner feel? How did that situation make you feel? And if you ask them that, then maybe that brings it to their attention of how things feel, right? How does it feel when I walk into my house at night? How does it feel when I leave my house at night? What's the energy like? What am I like in those situations? And that's important. So we have to remember that it's about, in my opinion, things are changing in society because it's about feelings. It's about what people in roles are important. The traditional values are important, traditional roles, and what we have as titles say are important. But what's more important are the feelings that we have with those. It's important to be a mother and feel that I can contribute 100% to that role and to my son in my role as a mother. Now, I don't always get it right. I'm not perfect. No one is. And when I'm not, or often, we talk about that as well. So we have to do the shift and make the shift where we choose what relationship and role feels right and the best for us. And so, again, I'm not asking for people to make changes within their relationships or within their roles because of the role. I'm asking you to feel the feelings when you're in that role. And that's what's important, is which lane you choose, right? And I think it's about the tipping point between traditional pressures and ancestral norms of things that needed to be done at a certain time in our lives because everybody else was doing it. And that has to stop for our next generation. It doesn't matter to me if my son gets married at 23, 33, 43, or 53. It doesn't matter to me if he gets married at all. That's his choice and his decision, and he has to make it with his feelings, and I have to respect it. And that's something else we'll talk about. We'll talk about the difference between understanding and respecting. Those are two different things. And I think in relationships, we try so hard to get somebody to understand our stance, our position, our decision on something, when really it's not about understanding. I don't understand a lot of things that go on in society or a lot of things that go on in other people's relationships. It's not my place to judge. I do try to respect what's going on in the relationship. And so to me, respect is the most important thing. It isn't the only thing. I've had people tell me that when respect ends in a marriage or in a relationship, that there's not much left after that. And it's not about that. It's not about the respect, although that it's nice to have. It's about the feeling. It's about how does it feel when you feel unrespected or disrespected, I should say. How does that feel? And can you discuss it? Do you feel vulnerable enough? And does the person make you feel safe enough to discuss with them the level of respect that you're receiving and may mismatch with what you're needing? So again, it's about communication and it's about that safety. So think about your generations that came before you, your parents, your grandparents. We've talked about it in the past as well, about people, your great grandmother came over with a buggy whip. It doesn't mean that you have one as well. You learn from them. It doesn't mean that their relationships were bad. It worked for them and maybe their feelings, but maybe it's not working for you and your feelings. And that's the difference, is that we're evolving, just like technology, just like advances in medicine and all those types of things. So you have to ask yourself, and please ask yourself quietly, loudly, how does this feel? Does this feel good? Can I make it better through my feelings, through my communication? And that's what's important, is to be able to find that level of vulnerability and safety with people in your lives, to be able to share with them your feelings. And just as importantly, share their feelings with you without judgment and criticism, because there's no stopping feelings quicker than being judged by them or criticized for them. Believe me, that is a hard place to try to communicate through, is through judgment and criticism. So again, do things lovingly, with compassion and kindness. And that's what I ask of you. Traditional roles or not, feel them. Feel everything you can, every day you can, and in every relationship you can, even the fears, even the desires and the needs. Feel them, communicate them with the people that you love, and more importantly with yourself, so that you understand them. If a feeling comes on to you and you're not sure why you're crying, take a step back and figure it out. Don't not cry, just figure out why you are. Maybe it's grief, maybe it's fear, maybe it's just an emotion or a thought that came to you. from either what's happening now or brought something up from your past. It's okay. Just feel your feelings. Stay in the relational lane and do the things you need to do. So I want to thank you for showing up here today. Thanks for listening for yourself. And for me, it was exciting. This is a passionate conversation and topic that I had today with you. I hope you thought so too. And until next time, please keep chasing purpose. See you then.